Hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about bringing together machine learning and customer service. My name is Jason Maynard. I'm the GM of our guide product at Zendesk, but also our data products team, which builds machine learning products. And I'm talking with Brian Crumpley, who's from Dollar Shave Club, one of our great customers. Dollar Shave Club does men's grooming products subscription. They also make YouTube videos. If you haven't seen them, they're fantastic. So you should check them out. If you haven't heard of Zendesk, Zendesk builds a cloud customer service product that helps businesses connect with their customers. So effectively, our software allows your customers to contact you on any channel or self-serve if they want to. Our machine learning team thinks about how to take all of the data exhaust that's coming from those products and turn it into useful features for our customers. So a couple of examples just to kind of give you a sense of what we're doing. The first kind of machine learning enabled feature that we ever built was called satisfaction prediction. And what it did is it looked at all of the historical satisfaction surveys that you've sent to your customers. And we trained a model that let you see how you're doing on the current tickets that you're working on. So hopefully you could preemptively identify tickets that were at risk of getting a bad interaction and head them off. The latest machine learning feature that we launched is called AnswerBot. AnswerBot is a little bit different. It's not a predictive feature. It's more around automating a certain task. So AnswerBot works by when a customer sends you a question via email, we identify that question, and then we look in your knowledge base, and if we can find a relevant article that can answer that question, we just send that back immediately to the customer, and they can self-serve and read that article. So those are the types of features that the data product team is working on at Zendesk, and that we're going to talk about today. So just to give you like a sense of the types of data that we're working with. So Zendesk handles about 4.6 million customer interactions today across all of our customers on our platform. And all those interactions have a ton of unstructured data that we can use to automate different tasks. A ton of customer support is repetitive interactions. So agents are sitting there answering questions, and they get the same question from a different customer over and over and over again. And so that type of training set is actually really good for us to go and think about how do we automate that problem and remove some of the minutia of an agent's day-to-day so they can focus on more nuanced conversations where a human needs to be part of that. And it means that customers, instead of having to wait for an agent to get to work and get their coffee and eat their Danish and answer your ticket, we can 24/7 answer your requests, and customers can get their answers faster. So it's a win-win. And one of the big benefits that we see from this is actually around getting those answers to customers faster. So this is data from our Zendesk benchmark. So we benchmark metrics for our customers, or from our customers. On the x-axis, you have the first reply time in minutes of all the interactions on Zendesk. And on the y-axis, you have your customer satisfaction percentage, so the percentage of customers that had a good interaction. And you can see that very quickly, I'll try and use this pointer, the satisfaction falls off the longer it takes to respond. And so we thought about how do we help our customers handle their workload and respond faster. We already had some customers that were trying this. You can see there's this. This was pre-AnswerBot. We have some customers that tried to set up static rules to automatically answer questions, but it wasn't super relevant what they were sending because it wasn't enabled by kind of the intelligence that we can build into the system. So we wanted to solve that problem. And so that's when we built AnswerBot. So over we started building data products in about 2014. And the next kind of few slides are just an overview of, through building those products, we've learned a bunch of lessons. And so I thought for this group, it'd be cool to kind of share what we've learned. So the first thing is, stand on the shoulders of giants. I don't know how big Google's data science team is. I don't know how big AWS's team is. But it's safe to say it's a lot bigger than ours. And so we thought a lot about how do we leverage all the work that they're doing to build great customer experiences. We're not in the business of building a machine learning platform that's generalized that everyone can use. We're a customer service company that wants to help our customers build great customer experiences. So we really looked at what are the open source packages out there, the cloud technologies out there that we can leverage. We use scikit-learn, Pandas, TensorFlow, Jupyter. Those are some of the open source packages we use. We're actually core contributors back to TensorFlow serving, which we use a lot in production. So leveraging those open source technologies has enabled our relatively small team to build a lot with machine learning. We also have a hybrid cloud footprint. So we're both in AWS and GCP, which means that in the rapidly evolving landscape of cloud technologies for ML, we can actually leverage different technologies when it makes sense. So we were using AWS for GPUs, and when Google came out with TPUs, we were able to try those out. So having that kind of flexibility has really helped us move quickly. Next up, so when we built satisfaction prediction, it was kind of dipping our toes into the ML waters, and the first thing that we did was, let's build a pretty vanilla ML model to predict satisfaction. So we took a bunch of words, we did some hashing, TF-IDF, logistic regression for classification, and that worked really well. It was out of the box, pretty simple. It was great. And when we launched that product, we started getting a bunch of feedback, and some of that was positive, but then we also found that there were some downfalls. So one thing about that is we had to train a model for every customer. So we had to wait for that customer to get onboarded. They had to start sending satisfaction surveys. They needed enough surveys for us to train a model, and then they could start using it. And for a company that really values a web trial buy experience, ease of use, easy onboarding, that wasn't a great solution for us. So for AnswerBot, we kind of went back to the drawing board and thought about how do we build a model that can circumvent some of those problems. So what we did is we bit the bullet. We said we're going to build a deep learning model for this. It actually took about 4 months for us to get caught up with the performance of our kind of vanilla ML model, but it eventually did, and that meant that we can train this model by data locality, by language, and it means that every customer can kind of start on that model and get going. So they're easily onboarded. You can use the ML features during your trial, and you get going really quickly. So it was a great win for us, kind of thinking about how do we build a global model rather than a model for every customer. Next up, once you start in the world of deep learning, you realize that those models are super hungry. So we had to think about how do we create a big enough training set to create a performant deep learning model. And so when we were working on AnswerBot, we wanted to make sure that we were only training the model on customer interactions that were positive. It's great. We have a satisfaction survey. A bunch of our tickets are labeled as good, so that problem solved. But then we also need tickets where an agent has gone and sent a link to an article back to a customer. And when you do that, when you look at those two data sets, we have about 6.6 million satisfaction surveys rated per month, and about 2.2 million articles sent from agents. But when you look at that intersection, it's much smaller and not large enough for us to train a model on. So we actually applied some techniques from transfer learning, and we trained a model. The first step phase is it learns how to recognize positive interactions. And then the second stage, it learns how to figure out what the right answer to a question is. And that meant that we could use the full amount of kind of articles sent back to customers, and we'd effectively label that data before using it in the training. And that meant that we were able to increase the training set by about 60%, and we have about 12 million kind of ticket article pairs that we can train that initial global model on. So lots of ways to kind of extend that data and build your training set. Second to last point, UX is still king. So I don't know if some of you may have heard this story, but so what do you think one of the biggest improvements to Google ad clicks was in history? And you may say like a model change or segmentation, and it was none of those things. They changed the label on promoted ads from yellow to gray. And that means that less people recognized that it was a promoted link. more people clicked on it, and it really boosted the click-through rate and what they were trying to get. We see the same thing in some of the changes that we make. Little tweaks to UX can make a big change in your outcome, and it's not all about building the most performant deep learning model. So an example that I give is, we send these links back to customers. A lot of our customers have their articles behind a login screen in their knowledge base. And so a customer would click the link and then have to log in or create an account. And that was just this extra step before someone could get the answer that they needed. But we knew who a customer was when they contacted us. So we made a small change. We send an authentication token and a tokenized link. And so that customer automatically logs in. And that small change boosted our resolution rates by 2 percentage points, which is one of the biggest kind of one-time changes that we've had. So, and as big as any model change that we've made. So those UX improvements are just as important as focusing on the model. And finally, I talked about this training set that we used to create the initial training set for AnswerBot. One of the other things we started thinking about is how do we turn this into a virtuous cycle? How do we collect more data? And so we've built in feedback loops so an agent can provide feedback on a link that's sent to a customer. A customer, when they get that link, they can tell us, no, this wasn't helpful. So not only do we have that initial training set that's constantly growing, we've actually turned the feature into something that's constantly creating more data that we can train on. So those are some of the lessons that we've learned. We have AnswerBot now. Brian is going to talk about how this is working in the field for Dollar Shave Club.
Thank you. Alrighty. Like Jason said, I work at a Dollar Shave Club. When we're not making funny YouTube videos, apparently we sell razors too on the side. Who knew? But so I manage the customer insights. So basically what that means is I spend a lot of my time going through the 1.5 million conversations that we have every single year with our members and non-members alike, elevating the feedback, the issues, the pain points that the customers are experiencing, and taking those to the proper business leaders to make decisions and change the website or take down the YouTube video. The other part of the job is a little bit less tangible, but it's sort of pushing the brand conversation forward. So when you join Dollar Shave Club, you actually want to feel like you're a part of a club. What are we giving you besides razors every single month? We hope to be giving you an experience too. So a lot of the work that I do is to make sure that the agents have time to engage in those types of interactions. That all sounds kind of like hooey, but one of my favorite examples of that is our marketing team sent out an email not long ago promoting a hair gel. And unfortunately for the marketing team in our database, there's not a flag that says, does customer have hair? Yes, no. So they just sent it to everybody. They get an email back from a guy, and he just sends a picture of the top of his head, just his bald head. And it says, forget the gel, send hair. So we sent him a wig. And then a couple days later, he sends an email back of a picture of him with this wig. He had driven his convertible onto a golf course in what looked like a retirement community somewhere in Florida. He had his wife take a photo of him, smiling nice and big, and we shared that with everyone in the company and all that. But that guy, because we were able to actually sort of give the agent the time to do that ticket, he's going to be a customer for life most likely. And the sort of people that he's referred, probably by word of mouth, is worth a box of wigs every single month. So that's a little bit of what we try to do. But we have a dilemma. So while we encourage these high-value interactions with our members and we want everyone to spend time on it, the majority of our interactions, well, not the majority, we'll get into that in a second, a lot of our interactions are the sort of banal, tedious, everyday kind of tickets. So I always had this hunch that this was the case, so we decided to go back and look at the data. So when I jumped into the data, basically what we were able to do was sort of divide our tickets into two hierarchical categories. The first was self-solvable. So could the person solve the ticket on their own? And then the second one was agent-assisted, so which means did the ticket actually require some action on our part? And what we found out actually surprised us. The self-solvable tickets, you wouldn't think this would be the case, are longer, they cost more, have a lower customer satisfaction, and at times can make up close to 50% of our overall volume. So we knew when we found this out that we have to do something about this self-serviceable ticket so that we can focus more on the agent-assisted where we thrive, where we send out WIGs. So that's what we did. So we went to go looking in the market. We had a few requirements. First requirement was that we wanted to push the member towards self-service. And the reason that we wanted to do that was that we've done surveys with our members, and one of the most preferred channels of contact is actually self-service, so no contact at all. What they want to do actually is not talk to us. And that's perfectly fine. So we want to give them that ability. The second reason we want to drive them to self-service is that they actually teach themselves, and then they don't come back with that issue later. Secondly, when you're introducing automation, of course, you want to make sure it's consistent within the experience. We are totally comfortable letting them know that it actually is an AI that's responding to them, but we want to be able to make sure that it's native and natural and as contextual as we can possibly do, maybe even with our brand voice in there. And then finally, thirdly, of course, it has to be accurate. If someone reaches out to us with an issue and we respond and say, hey, these articles might help you, if they actually don't help them, it's just going to make the member more frustrated. So, surprise, surprise, we found the answer in AnswerBot. So so what we did is we went back to the data science team at Dollar Shave Club, and we said, all right, we have these millions of records of self-servable contacts. They scanned everything, and we found a list of keywords that were, well, they varied in their predictability, but the ones that were at 75% or above confidence level, we decided to test with those. So this is an example of when we were in that test period. So some of the keywords here: stop my shipments, I have too many razors. But yeah, so I'll actually read it. So Mark emails in and says, I need to stop the shipments for a few months. Long pause. I have so many razors right now. And this is a very, very common ticket that we get. What Mark doesn't know is that Mark can skip his shipment if he wants. He can put his shipments on a pause for anywhere from 1 to 3 months, and he can even put his account on hold indefinitely. But what he gets back are 3 articles that actually recommend that for him. If he clicks on the article, he can solve it out. It actually takes it out of our Zendesk instance entirely. So let's talk about some of the data from what we did. Those first 2 months right there is when we were in the testing period using the data that we got from our data science team. Solve rate was around 24%. We were really satisfied with that. It was actually probably, if anything, is low. And so we decided to, okay, let's go ahead and open this up to as many self-solvable contacts as possible. So we started that around mid-June. Every single month, we've seen a little bit of an uptick in the percentage of tickets that are solved. Actually, I should tell you, the orange are the ones that go out. The grays are the ones that get solved, and the line is the percent. So we've seen an ever-increasing percentage of people self-solving. Go through here. And the better part is that we didn't see any degradation in CSAT for these tickets specifically. Now, this is probably my favorite slide for data-wise. We have seen a decrease in the amount of self-solvable tickets coming into our inbox since we launched AnswerBot. So what this means, at least to me, or at least suggests, but I haven't proven yet, is that the members are learning how to do this on their own, and they're coming back to us less frequently with those issues. So as you can see now, we were at certain points almost at 50-50 of our time. We are now going to those tickets that we actually require an action, and we can actually send out a WIG or something. So we've had all this extra time because by doing this, we've actually decreased the amount of emails coming in. So everyone's been talking about, on a lot of these sessions, what do you do with the extra time that you get? How do you reinvest that? So we decided we're going to reinvest it in 2 places. We're going to reinvest it in our customers, and we're going to reinvest it in the actual club pros themselves. So here are just 4 things that we've done. The first one for the customers is with this extra time that the agents had, we were actually able to expand live chat by a significant amount without adding any headcount whatsoever. This is good for the members because the members actually prefer chats from one of the higher ones in terms of favorability. The second thing we did was, this is they're all my favorites, is that we launched a Customer Insights magazine, which has basically changed my job from pulling data to being an editor of a magazine. The magazine is actually created by, the content all comes from the club pros. So which are our agents. They see something going on, they want to talk about it, so we end up pulling data for it. put some charts together. We actually go talk to the teams before we put the magazine out, tell them about what we're about to produce. And this goes out bi-monthly and is on the desk of every single Dollar Shave Club employee when they come into work. The third thing we were able to do was launch a test and learn team. So this is also something the club pros do. They spend time looking at what's going on, and then they'll actually send out proactive emails that will test on a small scale, and if they work, i.e. they drive the actions that we're trying to produce, we'll actually take it to the marketing team, and it'll become a full-fledged email. And we've done everything from drive changes on the site to actually making revenue, all from the club pros. So they are getting something out of this that helps transcend them and make them valuable members of the organization, not just people that are answering tickets. And so the last thing we've done, which is actually my favorite part, is they work really hard to actually make the bot better. So a lot of people talk about customer service agents are wary of AI. On our team right now, they're working to make it more accurate so that they can have more time to do the stuff that's listed here and all that. So yeah, that's, if you have any questions, I'll be downstairs at the Zendesk booth.
I will too.
Along with Jason.
Also, Adrian, our president of products, who was supposed to speak today, but he got heat stroke yesterday, so he couldn't make it up here. But you can come down to our booth. You can chat with Brian and myself and Adrian. You can get a fidget cube, which they will tell you does nothing. But it really, if you solve it, you get a year of Zendesk free. So you can come down, get a fidget cube, and chat with us.
Yep.
And thank you, Brian, very much, and you guys for seeing our talk.
All right. Thank you.